we knew something was wrong, but we didn't know what. One of the major things was like a thick tongue. You couldn't understand what he was saying. He walked on his toes constantly, had never walked on his flat feet. He felt no hot or cold. And one day at lunch, he had one pupil dilate, very large, and it just stayed there all through lunch. So I called his eye doctor, and when she took a picture of the back of his eye, she came back in frantic. She said there was pressure on the back of his retina. And so we went to the ER that morning without even going home, and the ER doctor came back in and said, there's no tumor, but he has Chiari Malformation. I said, what is that? He said, it's not an emergency. And sent us home. So by the time we went to the doctors, I had researched enough that most of the things I saw were negative, and I didn't want to do anything. So I said, can you just give us time? Obviously, he's had it this long. I don't see that anything's going to take place. Can we just watch it and see what we're going to do? So it took us, 2 years before we did anything. But in the meantime, I researched anybody who had surgery. I checked out that doctor. And there was one name that kept coming up over and over again with good things.
She found me on the internet. She was searching around. She was fairly particular about what she wanted. And she found that I do specialize in Chiari Malformation surgeries. So they traveled from Maine. Zeke has Chiari 1 malformation, and this is his MRI. You can appreciate the cerebellar tonsils, which are really the bottom of the cerebellum, extending well below the bottom of the skull. This line is roughly drawn between the basion, or the skull base, and the opistheon, or the back of the skull, so that all of this tissue is actually out of the skull and extending down into the spine. There should be nothing here except medulla and upper spinal cord. So when this additional tissue, the cerebellar tonsils, comes down into the spine, it acts like a cork and plugs the flow of fluid between the brain and the spine.
Zeke's brother told him, don't do that, just to some simple thing that we don't even remember what it was. He was so upset that he walked upstairs, slammed his bedroom door, and punched with his fist a hole in a 10-gallon aquarium, just hitting it.
Children will have rages and irritability when they're in pain. They don't necessarily recognize it as pain if it's been going on since they were babies. It's how they've always been, but they just have a short fuse. And a lot of the time after we correct their problem and the pressure in the brain is down, they no longer have those rages. Zeke underwent Chiari Decompression, which is removing a portion of the back of the skull, and usually, almost always, the C1 lamina as well, just the back part of the C1 ring, not the entire ring. I always open the dura. I always expand the dura with a large patch, and I resect the cerebellar tonsils. They are always dysmorphic, ischemic tissue. They've been deprived of blood flow for so long because they've been in that tight space that they really don't have any function. And so I open those up and remove them to create more space.
And then we stayed here in the housing. Michigan Head and Spine Institute had made arrangements with St. John, Providence, on a new pilot program that they were doing with houses that the hospital owned that really played a major role in making Zeke comfortable for recovery. It's like a weight has been lifted, that he's going to be no different than everybody else. School is easy now. He can function and concentrate.
He has not had any more rages. His pressure in his eyes has normalized. He no longer has swelling at the back of his eyes. He no longer has headaches. He does not have neck pain.
I'm glad we took the time to go the 18 hours to Michigan for somebody who had results, and everything went well.